At 79 years old, Cher stands at a crossroads most of us can't even imagine. The woman who gave us Believe, who won an Oscar, who defied every rule Hollywood ever tried to impose on her, is now facing the kind of heartbreak that money can't fix, fame can't heal, and time is running out to repair. As she approaches her 80th birthday in May, the goddess of pop is fighting battles on multiple fronts, battles that are tearing her apart from the inside, battles involving the people she loves most in this world. Her son lies in a hospital bed, fresh from an overdose that nearly killed him. Her other child faces wedding plans she might not be invited to. And the woman who conquered stages worldwide now confesses she hates getting older and feels anything but wise. This isn't the fairy tale ending anyone expected for one of entertainment's most enduring icons. What you're about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about Cher's life right now. To truly understand the weight of what Cher is experiencing today, we need to go back to where it all started. Back to a time when she was just a teenager with dreams bigger than her circumstances. Born Sherilyn Sarkeesian on May 20th, 1946, in El Centro, California, Cher's early life was anything but glamorous. Her mother, Georgia Holt, was an actress and model who married 8 times to 6 different men, creating an unstable childhood environment that would shape Cher's understanding of love and relationships forever. Cher dropped out of school at 16 and moved to Los Angeles with nothing but raw ambition and a dream. She was homeless, sleeping wherever she could find shelter, when fate intervened in the form of a coffee shop encounter that would change everything. That's where she met Salvatore Philip Bono, better known as Sonny Bono, who was 11 years her senior and working in the music industry. Their meeting, as Cher would later describe it, felt like the Tony and Maria moment from West Side Story, where everyone else in the room just faded away. Sonny took her in, and their relationship evolved from platonic roommates to romantic partners to one of the most iconic duos in entertainment history. But it wasn't easy. They struggled financially, often crashing with friends or family, working as gophers for legendary producer Phil Spector. Then one day, Spector asked them to sing background vocals for the Ronettes, and something magical happened. Their voices blended in a way that caught everyone's attention. By 1965, they released I Got You Babe, which sold over 3 million copies and catapulted them to international stardom. Sonny and Cher became cultural phenomena, not just for their music, but for their bold fashion choices and their willingness to challenge social norms. Cher wore Bob Mackie creations that scandalized television executives and delighted audiences. She refused to conform to anyone's expectations about how a female entertainer should look, dress, or behave. This rebellious spirit would become her trademark, but it would also create friction throughout her life, in her career, in her relationships, and eventually, with her own children. The Sonny and Cher comedy hour dominated television in the early 1970s, but behind the scenes, the marriage was crumbling. Sonny wasn't faithful, and he also controlled every aspect of Cher's career and finances. When they divorced in 1975, Cher discovered that Sonny owned 95% of their company, and she owned nothing. She had to fight legally to reclaim her career and her identity. This betrayal taught her a painful lesson about trust and power that she would carry for the rest of her life. But Cher did what Cher always does. She reinvented herself. She launched a solo music career that produced hits like Gypsies, Tramps and Thieves, and Dark Lady. She conquered Broadway. She became a serious actress, earning an Academy Award for Best Actress for her role in Moonstruck in 1988. She won Emmy Awards, Grammy Awards, and became the only artist to have a #1 single on the Billboard charts in 6 consecutive decades. She didn't just survive, she thrived. By the time Believe dropped in 1998, Cher had already lived several lifetimes in show business. The song became a global anthem, pioneering the auto-tune effect that would dominate pop music for decades. At age 52, when most female artists were being told they were past their prime, Cher was topping charts and selling out arenas. She proved that age was just a number, that talent and determination could overcome any obstacle. She became an LGBTQ icon, a feminist symbol, and a living legend. Everything she touched seemed to turn to gold. But success in your professional life doesn't guarantee happiness in your personal life. And that's where Cher's story takes its most heartbreaking turns. Cher's journey as a mother began during her marriage to Sonny Bono. On March 4, 1969, she gave birth to their only child together, Chastity's son Bono, named after the movie Chastity that Cher had starred in. From the very beginning, motherhood was complicated. Cher was at the height of her fame, touring constantly, filming television shows, recording albums. The demands of her career meant that chastity often felt like a secondary priority, something Cher herself would later acknowledge with profound regret. After divorcing Sonny, Cher quickly married rock legend Gregg Allman of the Allman Brothers Band in 1975. Their relationship was tumultuous from the start, marked by Gregg's severe substance abuse issues. Cher filed for divorce 9 days after their wedding, then reconciled, then separated again. It was during one of their brief reunions that she became pregnant with their son, Elijah Blue Allman, who was born on July 10, 1976. By the time Elijah was born, Cher and Gregg's relationship was already falling apart. They finally divorced for good in 1979. Raising 2 children while maintaining one of the most demanding careers in entertainment created an impossible situation. Cher has openly admitted that she struggled to balance her roles as a mother and as an international superstar. She was often absent, traveling for work, and when she was home, she was exhausted. Both Chastity and Elijah would later speak about feeling neglected, about craving their mother's attention and never quite getting enough of it. Elijah's childhood was particularly difficult. With Gregg Allman's addiction issues and Cher's career demands, Elijah often felt shunted aside. In a 2014 interview, Elijah revealed that he felt shunned as a child, especially after his sibling Chastity came out as gay in 1995. The media attention around Chastity's coming out, and later transition to Chaz Bono in 2008, meant that Elijah felt even more invisible than before. He described feeling like he didn't fit into his mother's world, like he was always on the outside looking in. In a particularly painful revelation, Elijah admitted that he started experimenting with drugs at just 11 years old. Think about that for a moment, 11 years old, still a child, and already turning to substances to cope with feelings of abandonment and loneliness. By his teenage years, he was deeply addicted to heroin, a battle that would consume decades of his life. Cher sent Elijah to boarding school, hoping that distance and structure would help him. Instead, it made him feel even more rejected. He interpreted it as his mother not wanting him around, as her choosing her career and her other relationships over him. The resentment festered and grew, creating a chasm between mother and son that would take years to even begin to bridge. Meanwhile, Cher's relationship with Chastity was evolving in its own complicated way. When Chastity came out as a lesbian in 1995, Cher struggled with it initially but ultimately became supportive. When Chastity transitioned to Chaz Bono between 2008 and 2010, undergoing gender confirmation surgery and legally changing his name, Cher went through what she describes as a difficult adjustment period. In a 2020 interview with CNN, Cher admitted, "It was hard at first, but then the problem disappeared like that." She snapped her fingers to emphasize how quickly she came to terms with it. Cher has been publicly supportive of Chaz's transition, and Chaz has praised his mother for attending his performances and being a big fan of his work. But even this relationship has experienced strains. Recent reports in 2024 and 2025 suggest that Chaz and his fiancée may have wanted Cher excluded from their wedding due to family drama surrounding Cher's attempts to place Elijah under conservatorship. The idea that Cher might not be invited to her own child's wedding speaks volumes about the depth of the family tensions. But it's Cher's relationship with Elijah that has become the most publicly painful, the most heartbreaking, and the most potentially tragic. Elijah Blue Allman grew up to become a musician, forming the industrial rock band Deadsy in the 1990s. Music was his passion, his escape, and perhaps his way of connecting with both of his parents, both of whom were legendary musicians. But his addiction to heroin continued to haunt him. In 2008, he claimed to have gotten sober, and for a while, it seemed like he was turning his life around. In 2013, Elijah married British singer Mariangela King, also known as Queenie. The wedding was a small, intimate affair, and notably, Cher was not invited. Elijah later explained that he wanted to avoid the media circus that would inevitably follow if his famous mother attended. But the exclusion hurt Cher deeply. In response, she didn't invite Elijah and Mariangela to the family Christmas celebration that year, escalating the estrangement between them. Their relationship continued to deteriorate over the years. They would go months, sometimes years, without speaking to each other. Cher has described their relationship as on and off, sometimes good, sometimes non-existent. The pain in her voice when she talks about Elijah is palpable. This is her baby, her son, and she's watched him suffer for decades, often feeling powerless to help him. The situation reached a critical point in December 2023 when Cher took the extraordinary step of filing for a temporary conservatorship over Elijah. In the court documents, Cher claimed that her son suffered from severe mental health and substance abuse issues and was incapable of managing the substantial assets he was set to inherit from his late father Greg Allman's estate. She expressed fear that if Elijah received these funds while still struggling with addiction, the money would be quickly depleted and, worse, could enable a relapse that might cost him his life. This wasn't a decision Cher made lightly. Filing for conservatorship over your adult child is one of the most drastic legal actions a parent can take. It means publicly declaring that your child is not capable of taking care of themselves. It means airing your family's most painful struggles in court documents that become public record. It means accepting that your child might hate you for it. But Cher felt she had no choice. She believed she was trying to save Elijah's life. Elijah fought back hard against the conservatorship petition. Through his lawyer, he filed objections stating, "I am doing well and do not need a conservatorship." He claimed that he had been sober, that he was managing his life responsibly, and that his mother's attempts to control his finances were unwarranted and damaging. The battle became public and ugly, with both sides presenting conflicting narratives about Elijah's condition and capabilities. The case drew comparisons to the Britney Spears conservatorship saga, with many people questioning whether Cher was overstepping her bounds or whether she was a desperate mother making a last-ditch effort to save her son. Legal experts weighed in, family members took sides, and the media had a field day with the story. Then came allegations that made everything even more complicated and disturbing. Mariangela King, Elijah's wife at the time, filed court documents in late 2023 alleging that Cher had hired men to kidnap Elijah from a hotel room in November. According to the allegations, Elijah and Mariangela had spent 12 days together working on their relationship when several men allegedly forcibly removed Elijah and took him to an undisclosed location. The documents suggested this was part of Cher's effort to gain control over her son. Cher vehemently denied these allegations, telling People magazine, "That rumor is not true." She declined to comment further, citing the private nature of family matters, but confirmed that the situation was related to Elijah's ongoing addiction struggles. The truth of what happened that night remains murky, with conflicting accounts and no clear resolution. What is clear is that the relationship between mother and son had reached a crisis point. Eventually, in early 2024, Cher dropped her conservatorship petition. Reports suggested that she and Elijah had reached a private settlement, though the details were never made public. For a brief moment, it seemed like maybe things were improving, maybe they had found a way forward. But that hope was shattered on June 14, 2025. On that Saturday, police in San Bernardino County, California, received a call about a man acting erratically at a residence in Joshua Tree in the Mojave Desert. When officers arrived, they found Elijah Blue Allman in severe distress. He was rushed to a nearby hospital, and reports quickly surfaced that he had suffered a drug overdose. The nightmare scenario that Cher had feared, the reason she had fought so hard for the conservatorship, had come to pass. The news devastated Cher. Sources close to the family told Star magazine that she was hoping and praying for the best, but was terrified that this overdose could be fatal. Elijah was 48 years old, had battled addiction for nearly 4 decades, and his body had endured tremendous abuse over the years. Every overdose is potentially fatal, and at his age, with his history, the risks were even higher. Mariangela King, still legally married to Elijah despite their on-again, off-again relationship, spoke out publicly about his struggles. She addressed what she called his inner demons, suggesting that Elijah's mental health issues were just as serious as his substance abuse problems. She pleaded for people to understand that addiction is a disease, not a moral failing, and that Elijah was fighting for his life. Within days, another bombshell dropped. Reports emerged that the overdose had been triggered, at least in part, by a conflict involving Mariangela. Sources told various media outlets that Cher blamed Mariangela for Elijah's relapse, believing that the tumultuous relationship had destabilized him. A family feud erupted, with Cher on one side and Mariangela on the other, both claiming to want what was best for Elijah, both blaming the other for his condition. Elijah was eventually discharged from the hospital after several days of treatment. TMZ reported that he returned home to Joshua Tree to recover. But just weeks later, in early August 2025, disturbing footage surfaced showing Elijah stumbling outside the infamous Chateau Marmont Hotel in Hollywood. He appeared disheveled, disoriented, and had visible sores on his body. The video sparked immediate concern from fans and addiction specialists alike, many of whom recognized the signs of ongoing substance abuse. The Sun published photos and described Elijah as looking unwell, noting a fake nail glued to one of his fingers and multiple marks on his skin that could indicate injection sites or picking at his skin due to drug use. It was heartbreaking to see this man who should be in his prime, who has so much talent and so much to live for, clearly still in the grip of addiction. For Cher, watching this unfold publicly has been a special kind of torture. Imagine being one of the most famous people in the world and having to watch your child's addiction play out in tabloid headlines and gossip websites. Imagine the helplessness of knowing that no amount of money, fame, or love can force someone to get sober if they're not ready. Imagine the guilt of wondering if you could have done something differently 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, that might have changed this outcome. In July 2025, the National Enquirer reported that Cher had been begging Elijah to move back in with her, offering to provide him with support, structure, and medical care. The publication quoted a source saying, "She's trying to keep him alive." Those 5 words encapsulate the desperation of Cher's situation. She's not trying to get him to rehab, not trying to get him to apologize or make amends. She's just trying to keep him alive. That's how dire things have become. As of now, Elijah's status remains uncertain. He and Mariangela filed for divorce in April 2025, with irreconcilable differences cited as the reason. But divorce proceedings can take months or years, and with addiction complicating everything, it's unclear what their relationship status truly is. What is clear is that Elijah is still struggling, still suffering, and Cher is still watching, still worrying, still grieving for the son she feels like she's losing a little more each day. Part 4. Cher's own health battles, fighting on multiple fronts. While Cher has been dealing with her son's crisis, she's also been battling her own significant health issues that she's kept relatively private until recently. In the late 1980s, during what should have been one of the peaks of her career, Cher contracted the Epstein-Barr virus, which led to chronic fatigue syndrome, also known as myalgic encephalomyelitis, or ME/CFS. The condition was further complicated by pneumonia that nearly killed her. Chronic fatigue syndrome is a devastating illness characterized by severe, debilitating fatigue that doesn't improve with rest. Patients often experience cognitive difficulties, sleep disturbances, muscle pain, and post-exertional malaise, meaning that even minor physical or mental activities can trigger a worsening of symptoms. For someone like Cher, whose entire life revolved around performing, touring, and maintaining an incredibly demanding schedule, CFS was career-threatening. In interviews, Cher has described how the illness forced her to stop working entirely for 2 years. "I was sick constantly and almost died from pneumonia," she revealed in a 2025 interview on The Today Show. "You never lose it, and it really takes the life out of you." Even decades later, Cher says she still experiences symptoms of CFS. The condition is chronic, meaning it can be managed but never fully cured. She has to carefully manage her energy levels, plan rest periods around performances, and accept that there are simply things her body can no longer do. The pneumonia that accompanied her Epstein-Barr infection was particularly dangerous. Pneumonia is the leading infectious cause of death among children and adults worldwide, and for someone with a compromised immune system due to chronic Epstein-Barr, it can be fatal. Cher was hospitalized, and at one point, doctors weren't sure she would survive. The experience was traumatic, and it fundamentally changed how she approached her health and her career. During her recovery, Cher had to turn down major film roles that could have defined another phase of her acting career. She was offered the lead in Thelma and Louise, which ultimately went to Susan Sarandon and became an iconic feminist film. She also had to decline The War of the Roses. These weren't just missed opportunities, they were painful reminders of how illness had stolen choices from her, how her body had betrayed her ambitions. But true to form, Cher fought her way back. She developed strict health routines, became a vegetarian, stopped drinking alcohol, and never used drugs, despite the rock and roll lifestyle she was surrounded by. She worked with doctors to find treatments that would help manage her CFS symptoms. She adapted her performing style, her touring schedule, and her expectations of herself. By the mid-1990s, she was back on stages and in recording studios, though she would never be quite the same physically as she had been before. Now, at 79, Cher is dealing with the normal challenges of aging on top of her chronic illness. In a November 2025 interview with People magazine, Cher made a striking statement. "I hate aging." She went on to say, "I don't feel wiser. I'm stupid. I'm not wiser." These are stunning admissions from a woman who has become a symbol of graceful aging and reinvention. They reveal a vulnerability and a frustration that she rarely lets the public see. Cher has always been open about using cosmetic procedures to maintain her appearance. She's had facelifts, Botox, and other treatments, and she's unapologetic about it. "If I want to put my tits on my back, it's my business," she once famously said. But no amount of plastic surgery can change the fact that her body is 79 years old, that she still carries the effects of chronic fatigue syndrome, that she gets tired more easily than she used to, that recovery from performances takes longer. She's also dealing with the existential reality of approaching 80. Her 80th birthday is in May 2026, just months away from now. She's at an age where she's losing friends regularly, where contemporaries are retiring or passing away, where the industry she helped build is moving on without her. She recently received the Recording Academy Lifetime Achievement Award at the 2025 Grammy Awards ceremony, an honor typically reserved for artists in the twilight of their careers. While it's a tremendous recognition of her contributions to music, it's also a reminder that she's being categorized as a legend of the past rather than an artist of the present. There have also been persistent, unverified rumors circulating on social media about more serious health issues. Some posts have claimed that Cher has been diagnosed with terminal cancer, that she's in stage 4, that she has limited time left. These rumors have caused panic among her fans and have been shared widely despite having no credible sources. Cher has not publicly addressed most of these specific claims, which is her right, but the persistence of such rumors speaks to the public's anxiety about her health and mortality. When someone has been a constant presence in popular culture for 60 years, the thought of losing them becomes almost unimaginable, and rumors fill the void left by privacy. What we do know for certain is that Cher is facing her own mortality in a very real way, and she's doing it while simultaneously fighting to save her son's life and navigating complicated relationships with both of her children. The stress alone would be overwhelming for anyone, let alone someone dealing with chronic illness and the physical demands of being 79 years old. In the midst of all this pain and struggle, Cher has found something unexpected: love. In November 2022, at age 76, Cher went public with her relationship with Alexander A.E. Edwards, a music executive and producer who is 39 years old. The age gap, 40 years, immediately became the focus of media attention and public commentary. Cher and Alexander met at Paris Fashion Week in September 2022. According to Cher, a mutual friend gave Alexander her number, and they started texting. When they finally met in person, there was an immediate connection. In an interview on The Kelly Clarkson Show, Cher acknowledged the unconventional nature of their relationship. "On paper, it's kind of ridiculous. But in real life, we get along great. He's fabulous, and I don't give men qualities that they don't deserve." Alexander Edwards, known professionally as A.E., has worked with major hip-hop artists and is known in music industry circles as a talented producer. He also has a young son from his previous relationship with model Amber Rose, whom Cher has embraced. In a recent appearance on the Armchair Expert podcast, Cher revealed that she had manifested her relationship with Alexander, saying, "I wanted a man and a toddler, and that's what I got." The relationship has brought Cher genuine happiness during one of the most difficult periods of her life. Friends say that Alexander makes her laugh, that he treats her with respect and affection, and that he doesn't seem intimidated by her fame or her legacy. For a woman who has been married twice, who has had high-profile relationships with men including Gene Simmons, Val Kilmer, and Tom Cruise, finding someone who loves her simply for who she is has been a rare gift. But the relationship hasn't been without controversy. Alexander has admitted to cheating in his past relationship with Amber Rose, which raised red flags for many of Cher's friends and fans. There's also the question of his motivations. Is he genuinely in love with Cher, or is he attracted to her wealth, fame, and connections? Cher has staunchly defended him, insisting that he has his own successful career and doesn't need her money. In December 2025, reports surfaced that Cher and Alexander were planning to get married before her 80th birthday in May 2026. The Mirror and other outlets claimed that Cher wanted to seal the deal and make their relationship official. The report suggested that Cher saw her 80th birthday as a significant milestone and wanted to celebrate it as a married woman, perhaps feeling that this might be her last chance at marital happiness. However, Cher quickly shut down these rumors. Through a representative, she stated there were absolutely no plans to marry Alexander on her 80th birthday or at any specific time. She did not say that marriage was off the table entirely, just that the timeline being reported was inaccurate. This clarification suggests that while marriage might be a possibility in the future, Cher isn't rushing into anything, despite media speculation. The relationship with Alexander represents a complex emotional reality for Cher. On one hand, she's in love and enjoying a romantic connection that brings her joy and companionship. On the other hand, she's dealing with family crises that would test any relationship. How does Alexander fit into her struggles with Elijah? How does he navigate the tensions with Chaz? What role, if any, does he play in helping Cher cope with her son's addiction and her own health issues? Some observers have suggested that Cher's relationship with a much younger man who has a young child might be, in part, an attempt to recapture something she feels she lost with her own children. By embracing Alexander's son and being a presence in his life, perhaps she's trying to be the kind of attentive parental figure that she wishes she had been able to be for Elijah and Chaz. It's armchair psychology, certainly, but there's something poignant about a 79-year-old woman manifesting, a man and a toddler, while simultaneously fighting to save her 48-year-old son's life. Regardless of the psychological underpinnings, the relationship seems to be providing Cher with emotional support and happiness. In photographs and videos from recent public appearances, Cher and Alexander appear genuinely affectionate. He holds her hand, she laughs at his jokes, and they seem comfortable together in a way that transcends the optics of their age difference. Yet there's a bittersweet quality to this romance. Cher is approaching 80, dealing with chronic illness, watching her son slowly destroy himself, possibly facing exclusion from her other child's wedding, and aware that the clock is ticking on her own life. In the midst of all that darkness, she's found love with someone who could theoretically outlive her by decades. It's beautiful and tragic all at once. As Cher approaches her 80th birthday, questions of legacy loom large. Professionally, her legacy is secure. She's sold over 100 million records worldwide. She's won an Academy Award, an Emmy, a Grammy, and 3 Golden Globes. She's been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She's had #1 hits in 7 consecutive decades, a feat no other artist has achieved. She's influenced generations of performers with her style, her voice, and her refusal to be boxed in by anyone's expectations. Cher has received the Kennedy Center Honors, the Billboard Icon Award, and most recently, the Recording Academy Lifetime Achievement Award. Museums and galleries have exhibited her iconic Bob Mackie costumes. She's been the subject of countless documentaries, books, and academic studies examining her impact on fashion, music, and feminist thought. When historians look back at the 20th and 21st centuries in popular culture, Cher will be prominently featured. That part is not in question. But personal legacy, family legacy, is a different matter entirely. What kind of mother will history remember Cher as being? What will her children say about her after she's gone? Will Elijah survive long enough to make peace with her, or will she have to bury him first? Will Chaz ultimately reconcile with her fully, or will family tensions persist? These are the questions that likely haunt Cher in quiet moments. The questions that Oscar statues and platinum records can't answer. In her recent memoir, Cher, the memoir Part 1, released in November 2024, Cher has begun to reckon publicly with her failures as a parent. She's addressed the fact that her career often took precedence over her children's needs. She's acknowledged the pain she caused by being absent so often. She asked Chaz for his blessing to use his dead name when referring to him in the period before his transition, and Chaz gave it, a sign that at least some level of understanding and communication exists between them. But memoirs are also acts of self-justification, attempts to frame one's life story in the most sympathetic light possible. Cher's version of events might differ significantly from how Chaz, or Elijah, would tell the same stories. And with Elijah still in the throes of addiction and family conflict, his perspective has largely been filtered through lawyers, estranged spouses, and occasional interviews rather than a comprehensive account in his own words. There's a very real possibility that Cher's 80th birthday, which should be a moment of celebration and reflection, will instead be overshadowed by crisis. If Elijah's condition doesn't improve, if another overdose happens, if the family rifts deepen, the milestone could become a reminder of everything that's broken rather than everything that's been achieved. That's the cruel irony of Cher's situation. She has everything the world tells us we should want: success, wealth, fame, recognition, and yet she's missing the thing that matters most: peace with her children and assurance that they'll be okay. Cher has announced plans for a 2026 world tour, which is being billed as her final farewell tour. At 79 and dealing with chronic fatigue syndrome, embarking on a grueling worldwide tour is a massive undertaking. Some have questioned whether she's physically up to it, whether she's taking on too much given her health challenges. But Cher has never been one to back down from a challenge, and performing is in her blood. The stage is where she's always felt most herself, most alive, most in control. Perhaps this tour is her way of taking control of the narrative one last time. If she can't fix her family, if she can't save Elijah, if she can't turn back time, she can at least go out on her own terms, doing what she does best. There's a certain tragic grandeur to the idea of Cher spending what might be her last active years performing for audiences around the world, while her personal life crumbles behind the scenes. It's very show must go on, very old Hollywood, and very Cher. One of the cruelest aspects of Cher's situation is that she's dealing with all of this in the glaring spotlight of public scrutiny. Most people get to age privately, to deal with their family problems without TMZ cameras, to struggle with their health issues without tabloid speculation. But Cher has been famous for over 60 years, which means every wrinkle, every health scare, every family conflict becomes content for gossip sites and social media debates. The public has opinions about everything she does. When she filed for conservatorship over Elijah, comment sections filled with people calling her controlling, comparing her to the villains in the Britney Spears saga, accusing her of trying to steal her son's money. When she dates a younger man, people call her desperate, suggest she's being taken advantage of, make crude jokes about cougars and gold diggers. When photos surface showing her at 79 looking different than she did at 40, people critique her plastic surgery choices, speculate about how much work she's had done, and debate whether she's aged gracefully or has had too much done. And through all of this, Cher is expected to maintain her image as the indestructible icon, the woman who defies time, the goddess of pop who doesn't have normal human vulnerabilities. But she does have those vulnerabilities, and at 79, they're becoming harder to hide. Her recent comments about hating aging and not feeling wiser reveal a woman who is tired, who is scared, who feels the weight of time pressing down on her. She's watching friends die. She's attending funerals regularly. She's aware that she has fewer years ahead of her than behind her, and she's keenly aware that time is running out to fix the things that are broken in her life. There's a particular poignancy to Cher's situation because she's spent her entire career singing about strength, resilience, and empowerment. If I could turn back time, strong enough, believe, these are anthems about overcoming adversity, about surviving heartbreak, about being powerful enough to make it through anything. Millions of people have drawn strength from these songs during their own difficult times. But what happens when the person who sang those songs is facing challenges that can't be overcome with strength or resilience? What happens when even Cher doesn't believe she can make it through? The disconnect between Cher's public persona and her private reality has probably never been wider than it is right now. Publicly, she's still performing, still making appearances, still promoting her memoir and preparing for a world tour. She shows up to award shows looking stunning. She posts on social media. She does interviews where she's funny and charming and seemingly ageless. But privately, she's living through a nightmare that would break most people. She's fighting to save her son's life, managing a chronic illness, navigating aging, dealing with family estrangement, and trying to find moments of happiness in a relationship that the whole world wants to dissect and criticize. As we move into 2026 and Cher's 80th birthday approaches in May, the future remains deeply uncertain. Will Elijah get sober, or will addiction claim another life, another talented soul lost to a disease that doesn't care about legacy or potential? Will Cher's health hold up well enough for her to complete her farewell tour, or will chronic fatigue syndrome force her to cancel dates and scale back her ambitions? Will she reconcile fully with both of her children, or will family tensions persist and perhaps worsen? Will her relationship with Alexander Edwards lead to marriage, or will it become another chapter in her complicated romantic history? These questions don't have easy answers, and in many cases, the answers aren't fully within Cher's control. She can offer Elijah help, but she can't force him to accept it or to get sober. She can manage her health conditions, but she can't reverse chronic illness or stop the aging process. She can try to repair relationships with her children, but healing takes two willing participants, and sometimes the wounds are too deep. What we do know is that Cher has always been a fighter. Every time the world counted her out, she came back stronger. When Sonny tried to control her, she fought for her independence. When people said she couldn't be taken seriously as an actress, she won an Oscar. When the music industry wrote her off as too old, she released Believe and dominated the charts. Time and time again, Cher has proven that she doesn't accept limitations, that she doesn't give up, that she finds a way through even when there doesn't seem to be one. But this time is different. This time, she's not fighting against industry executives or public opinion or age discrimination. She's fighting against biology, against addiction, against time itself. These are opponents that can't be defeated through sheer force of will or clever reinvention. These are battles that everyone ultimately loses. The only question is how much grace and dignity we can maintain while fighting them. If there's any comfort to be found in Cher's situation, it's that she's not facing it alone. She has Alexander by her side, providing emotional support and companionship. She has a vast network of friends in the entertainment industry who have rallied around her. She has millions of fans worldwide who send her love and prayers and hope that somehow things will work out. She has financial resources that allow her to access the best medical care, the best addiction treatment specialists, the best support systems that money can buy. But she also has the self-awareness to know that none of those things might be enough. In her most honest moments, Cher seems to understand that she's in a fight she might not win, that Elijah's addiction might claim him despite her best efforts, that her own health might decline despite optimal care, that time will keep moving forward whether she's ready for it or not. At 79, Cher stands at the intersection of triumph and tragedy. She has achieved things most people can only dream of: legendary status in multiple entertainment fields, wealth beyond measure, recognition as one of the most influential pop culture figures of the last century. But she's also facing challenges that wealth and fame cannot solve: a son battling life-threatening addiction, strained relationships with both of her children, her own declining health, and the inexorable march of time toward an ending that no one can avoid. The heartbreaking turn in Cher's life as she approaches 80 isn't one single event. It's the accumulation of loss, struggle, and the painful realization that even goddesses are mortal. It's watching your child slowly kill himself and being powerless to stop it. It's looking in the mirror and seeing 79 years reflected back, no matter how much surgery you've had. It's wondering if you'll live long enough to make things right with the people you love most. It's knowing that your last chapter is being written, and you don't get to control how it ends. But if there's one thing Cher has taught us over 6 decades in the spotlight, it's that she faces reality with her eyes wide open. She doesn't hide from hard truths. She doesn't pretend things are fine when they're falling apart. She admits when she's struggling, when she's scared, when she doesn't have all the answers. And somehow, that vulnerability makes her more relatable, more admirable, more human than any of her professional achievements ever could. Cher's story isn't over yet. Her 80th birthday is still months away. Elijah is still alive, still fighting his demons. Chaz is moving forward with his life. Alexander is by her side. The final chapters are still being written, and knowing Cher's history of defying expectations and rewriting the rules, it's possible that those chapters will contain surprises that none of us can predict. What we can say with certainty is that Cher is facing her most difficult challenges with the same spirit that has defined her entire career. Refusing to give up, refusing to be defeated, refusing to let anyone, including time itself, tell her what she can and cannot do. She may hate aging, she may feel lost and scared and overwhelmed, but she's still here, still fighting, still believing that somehow, in some way, things can get better. And maybe that's the most important legacy Cher can leave. Not the songs or the movies or the awards, but the example of someone who kept going even when it would have been easier to give up, who kept loving even when that love brought pain, who kept hoping even when hope seemed foolish. That's the real Cher, beneath the wigs and the costumes and the larger-than-life persona. That's the woman we should remember, the 79-year-old mother and grandmother, fighter and survivor, goddess and human being, all at once. As we watch her journey continue to unfold, all we can do is wish her well, hope for healing in her family, pray for Elijah's recovery, and appreciate that we've been privileged to witness one of the most remarkable lives in entertainment history, with all its triumphs and all its tragedies. Because in the end, isn't that what makes someone truly legendary? Not that they never struggled, but that they struggled and kept going anyway. Not that they never failed, but that they failed and still found the courage to try again. Not that they never faced heartbreak, but that they faced it honestly and continued to search for moments of joy and love and meaning.